What is going on, Raptors Nation? Boy, that was one of the strangest games I've ever seen. That game was ugly. Neither team deserved to win that game, but at the end of it, the Chicago Bulls somehow sneak out with the 104-103 win. We're going to talk about it before we dive right into it. Please do me a solid, hit a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more post-game reactions just like this. The Toronto Raptors spoiled Scottie Barnes' second career triple-double. Scottie Barnes had 22 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and 2 blocked shots. But I mean, I don't even know where to begin in this one because this game was just bizarre. Even like towards the end of it, DeMar DeRozan misses 3 key free throws, including the potential game-winning free throw. This game goes into overtime, and then the Raptors had a chance to win it there at the end, and Pascal Siakam couldn't even get a shot up in time as the Bulls win. So let's take this thing from the beginning. The Raptors actually get off to a really good start. They're clicking on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. They're shooting it well. And then the Bulls call a timeout. And then after that timeout, the Bulls completely flip this game upside down as the Bulls went on a 40-9 run in that first half. But then the Raptors went on a run to close out that first half. And then they went into halftime down by 7. And then in the second half, going into that fourth quarter, it looked like they were going to run away with this thing. It looked like they were going to win this sloppy game. And the Raptors actually had a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter, but they blew it as the Bulls went on a 22-5 crazy run to send this game into overtime. And then, of course, the Bulls pulled it out in overtime. I mean, there was just so many bad things that went for the Raptors. Just when you think another thing couldn't go wrong with this team, it did. You talk about, bad fouls, untimely fouls, missed free throws, just lack of discipline on offense and defense, not executing inbounds plays. This game had it all. And the Raptors lose this game in the worst way because when you look at this game for the Raptors, I mean, I was even surprised that they were in this game because of how poorly they were playing. The Raptors were 25% from 3 in this one. Field goal percentage, they were 47%. Like I said, they were missing a lot of free throws. Siakam missed some free throws in that overtime frame. The Raptors were just 16 of 25. The rebounds were the same. The assists, the Raptors won that battle 25-18. Didn't get as many assists as they did in game 1 and even going back to the preseason. The turnovers killed the Raptors. I mean, we saw a sloppy play, especially down the stretch when the Raptors needed to close out this game. 23 total turnovers and the Raptors 29 fouls. A lot of the calls went Chicago's way late in this one. I mean, DeMar DeRozan literally lived at the foul line late in regulation. And like I said, he had a chance to win this game at the line. I mean, very, very uncharacteristic from DeMar DeRozan to miss free throws. He missed 3 key free throws, and then he had a chance to hit the go-ahead free throw with 7/10 of a second, and he missed it, which is the reason why this game went into overtime. The Raptors' largest lead was 17. That evaporated. The Bulls' largest lead was 19. That evaporated. This was just a game of runs going every which way. And then somehow, the Raptors spoil this game and they lose it in overtime. As you look at Chicago, they did not shoot the ball well at all. They were worse from the field than the Raptors, 37%. They were only 20.5% from 3. But the difference, essentially, were the free throws. Chicago got to the line 28 times, and they were 22 of 28. They made 6 more free throws than the Raptors. And in a game like this, that is huge. And then the turnovers, 6 extra turnovers by the Raptors, and a lot of them coming in very bad positions of this game. Chicago had 17. So, I mean, you look at the Raptors in this one, I thought, if you want to go back to the first half when the Bulls made their run, a little concerning, with the bench that continues to be an area of concern because I thought this bench was going to be a lot better. Clearly, the bench, overall hasn't performed to where it needs to be. It did come alive in the second half. I'll get to that in just a second. But what I mean by what I just said is this game turned in favor of Chicago when the Raptors starters got some rest. And then we saw McDaniels, Achua, Flynn, Gary Trent Jr., and then Grady Dick, who did not play a whole ton tonight as well. He only had 6 minutes and he had 0 points. But Malachi Flynn, my concern is largely with him because Malachi Flynn comes into the game. He doesn't hit the lone shot that he takes. He didn't look like he knew what was going on. Again, not playing well on both sides. And if Malachi Flynn can't be a capable backup point guard, as Rjakovic basically didn't play him in the second half, and he realizes after a game and a bit that Malachi Flynn might not just be ready for this type of role, the Raptors are going to have to address potentially getting a backup point guard if they don't want to, always have Scottie Barnes or another starter handle the ball handling duties with that second unit because Malachi Flynn is borderline unplayable. I mean, not even borderline. He is unplayable right now. And we saw it was a massive difference. He did not come into the game second half. Scottie Barnes had a lot of the backup ball handling duties, and it worked well. So I'm interested to see what happens with Malachi from here on out because he only got 4 minutes, and it didn't take long before Darko pulled the plug on him. In terms of the bench, we did see Chris Boucher, and we didn't see Chris Boucher in the first half of this one. He came in finally in the second half, and he looked good in his minutes. Again, Chris Boucher, high energy, getting his hands on the ball, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 4 or 5 from the free throw line, 3 of 4 from the field. Chris Boucher needs to be a staple of the second unit. I said it in the offseason. I thought he was going to be a guaranteed rotation guy. He needs to be in this rotation from here on out. No questions about it. Because Chris Boucher is a veteran. He knows what it takes to perform, especially from off the bench. He's been doing it his entire career. And in 17 minutes, I really liked what Chris Boucher gave this Raptors team. And, he really gave this team some much needed life from that second unit. And then Precious had 8 points, 9 rebounds, 2 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3. And then Gary Trent Jr. finally came alive towards the end of this game as he had 16 points. After a rough start in the first half, Gary Trent Jr. much better in the second half, 6 of 14 overall, 3 of 10 from 3, hit a couple of big-time threes when the Raptors needed it, when it looked like they were going to run away with this thing, but that didn't happen. So if Gary Trent Jr. can continue to give you this type of performance from off the bench, another guy has to emerge from this bench. And right now, Flint hasn't looked good at all. Grady Dick seems like he's still ways away from becoming a trustworthy rotation player, especially as he gets accustomed to the game speed. He didn't make any shots. He was 0 of 2. McDaniels, he didn't score, but I thought he was good defensively, and that's what you're going to make the trade-off for a lot of the time with McDaniels. If he doesn't get his offense going, he is solid defensively. But, when you look at Gary Trent Jr., his production, Achua, can Boucher now get consistent bench minutes, which I hope is the case because I think Boucher can be that guy who can consistently give you some offensive production. And I would like to see Otto Porter Jr., if he's healthy and ready, get some run as well, because I think Otto Porter Jr. is another guy who can come into games, hit shots, and he defends on the other end as well. So the bench got off to a very bad start, was a big reason why the Bulls went on that massive run in the first half, but then the bench held their own, and it was thanks in large part to Chris Boucher really being the jumpstart of that second unit when the Raptors really needed it. But, you look at foul trouble, that was an issue as well, especially with the Raptors bigs late in this game. Achua fouls out, Jakob Poeltl fouls out, and then all of a sudden, you saw it, Chicago got more aggressive, particularly DeRozan, and they were looking to attack the rim every single time, and they were getting those calls. As you look at the starters, Dennis Schroeder, 35 minutes, he had 10 points, 10 assists. It's great to see Dennis continue to be that playmaker, find his teammates. Offensively, you can't expect him to get 20 to 22 points every single night. But if he could give you these stat lines, you're going to live with that as a Raptors fan. OG Anunoby, 11 points, 5 of 8 from the field. He did leave this game, which was a huge part of this game. Did leave this game with muscle cramp. And, hopefully he'll be ready to go. It's just one of those things, you're playing heavy minutes, you're fresh into the season, and, he did not return, which was the right call. But as soon as OG Anunoby leaves this game, Toronto's best defensive player, you saw the momentum shift. And all of a sudden, the Chicago Bulls had life because when you don't have the presence of OG Anunoby out there as the Raptors' best defender, a guy who could have contained a DeRozan when he was getting going, because DeRozan had a huge fourth quarter, and it was in large part to OG Anunoby being out of there. So this was a big moment of this game. OG had to leave, and then obviously the Bulls made their run, particularly DeRozan, because DeRozan wouldn't have had that fourth quarter if OG was in the game. I'll tell you that much. And then you look at Scottie Barnes. Yeah, he had the 7 turnovers. You got to cut those down. And he didn't have a perfect overtime frame. And obviously there were some things too defensively, him and Siakam biting at DeRozan's pump fakes, which allowed him to get to the foul line. So there's some things that need to be cleaned up when it comes to Scottie Barnes' game. But overall, I thought Scottie Barnes was magnificent. 22 points, 2 blocks, 10 assists, 10 rebounds, 9 of 14 from the field, hit a clutch 3-pointer in overtime. And Scottie Barnes made a couple of difficult shots tonight, shots that he wouldn't have made last season, which is the difference when it comes to his game this season. Scottie Barnes looks so much more comfortable in the offense, finding his offense, getting that shot to fall. And again, very, very promising to see Scottie Barnes 9 of 14 from the field and 1 of 2 from deep. And I will say this, Scottie Barnes, I would have liked to see him take the game's last shot because he had the momentum going. He was hot. I would have liked to see Barnes get that last shot attempt up because you look at Siakam, he once again proves that he just isn't that guy. And I've had this take now for so many years. Siakam is a good player. He had 18 points, 8 rebounds. He was 7 of 15 from the field, struggled from 3, 1 of 5. But he just isn't that closer. He just isn't that guy you can count on in late game situations. Siakam hit free throws in regulation, but in overtime, he missed some key free throws. And then, he couldn't even get the shot attempt up in the dying seconds of this one. And that is just frustrating to see. And I know it's really early and you don't want to overreact to these type of things, but we've seen this a lot from Siakam that he just isn't that guy you can count on late in games. And this is something that I've said from the summer into the season. And, one of the takes I had, I think this is Scottie Barnes' team now. And I think, you're going to see the development and the growth of Barnes because that leap is coming, man. I'll tell you that much, especially after a performance like tonight. Barnes is off to an amazing start. You want to let Barnes just fly. You don't want to hinder him in any way. And that was a very important part of this game. I thought maybe Barnes, who did hit a clutch 3, moments ago, was going to have the ball in his hands on that final possession. But the Raptors go to Siakam, and once again, he does not come through. So it's going to be interesting to see, Barnes' continued development, how he gels with Siakam, who is given the important shots when the Raptors play in more of these types of games. But Pascal Siakam, you want the max. You cannot be having these type of mislapses in late games, right? Because max guys are able to close games out. They're able to at least get a shot attempt, able to, draw a foul, get to the line, and make things happen. And we've seen a lot now that Siakam just doesn't, get it done more times than not, especially in, pivotal moments. And we even saw it going back to the playing game. And I don't want to mention the dreaded playing game, but this was deja vu of that game when obviously Siakam missed those free throws. DeAndre DeRozan was the MVP of that one. But I mean, overall, yeah, just a very frustrating loss. The Raptors, they didn't deserve to win this game. Again, surprised they even had a chance and they were up by as many as they were when it looked like they were going to close this thing out in the fourth. But still, this game was right there. They were up big. You just had to close this thing out, play disciplined basketball, and they let the Bulls back in this thing. And, overtime shouldn't even have happened. And you can make that argument too. But the Raptors, of course, fall completely on their face. They choke away the lead. And I don't know what the heck it is, but every time the Raptors play the Chicago Bulls, weird things like this seem to happen. So this is one of those games that you just want to forget about, never talk about again. But I mean, this was a game that was right there. And right now, the Raptors should be looking at 2-0. And it's tough to lose this game because not only did you log major minutes on your starters, Barnes had 39 minutes, Siakam 41, Dennis 35. But now you got to play in a back to back. You're literally playing Philadelphia in less than 24 hours. And, that is going to be a game where your starters going to be tired. You're going to have to rely on your bench heavily, and the bench hasn't gotten off to the best of starts. And, if the Raptors were 2-0, it gives you a little bit of leeway in that game against Philly at home tomorrow. But now instead, 1-1, you're going to be taking on Philly. That's going to be a hungry team, obviously. They lost their first game. And, what could have been a little bit of a less pressure on you now turns into, okay, we're 1-1. And now, this game against Philly is going to be tough because, yeah, we are on the second night of a back-to-back, and Philadelphia is going to bring their A game. So you want to win games like this. This is what I'm trying to say. You want to win games like this, especially when they're right there. It was right there for the taking. And the Raptors completely blow this thing. No other way to put it. And they surrender that big lead. Chicago takes advantage. And then in overtime, Raptors make some mistakes. They can't execute late. Siakam doesn't get the shot up. And the Chicago Bulls, they win this game, man. Yeah, shout out to DeMar DeRozan. He was huge in this one for Chicago. When he went on that individual run, when it looked like this game was over, 33 points. He got to the line 14 times. He was 11 of 22, and then Caruso hit the biggest shot. He hit a 3 in the corner, which put Chicago up for good. So this was a Chicago Bulls team that they were in desperate mode as well. They had a players meeting, and they obviously were playing at home, and they were getting booed at one point, and this is a huge win for them. And, the Raptors, they got to beat teams like this, like the Chicago Bulls of the world, if they want to be a playoff team this season. So, yeah, they just couldn't get it done. A lot to clean up. The defense, all things considered, remains a positive. You can tell the defense is going to be this team's backbone. Scottie Barnes looks great, which is another positive, but just limited turnovers, execution, and just this offense, not looking as sloppy, not looking as stagnant, because even in Minnesota or against Minnesota in that game, the Raptors offense did not look particularly good. Raptors got to be a lot better offensively, and that is something to look out for this season. So the Raptors, they fall here to the Bulls. They're 1-1, and they will take on the Philadelphia 76ers, like I said, in less than 24 hours, as Nick Nurse will return to Toronto. That's going to be a good game to watch. But that is it for me, Raptors Nation. Going to end it here. What was your reaction to this very, very bad loss by the Raptors? And what are some of your takeaways? Let me know your thoughts down below. Hit a like on the video, guys. Subscribe to the channel for more. This is Lucas signing off. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay safe.